Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Policy and Practices monthly webinar for this time for October. Today we're going to be talking about how water companies are closing the unclaimed support gap, and you are all very welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Before we get started, before we're underway, I would just like to do an audio check, just some housekeeping, sorry, and do an audio check via the panel on the right-hand side. So please, if you could raise your digital hand to let me know that you can hear me. In that same panel, you should be able to see the place where you can ask questions or put a chat to the speakers on the webinar. So please do, and I encourage you to do that throughout the webinar. We have a poll and some downloads. I actually think they're called handouts there, and the panel. So please do take advantage of that, and we'll have a short survey at the end of the webinar, which we would love you to complete, please. Talking of which, we aim to have you on your way by 11:45, and as always, the slides and the recording will automatically follow, so no need to take millions of notes. Okay, and if you are on Twitter, please do give us a follow. We are at policy_practice, and it would be great to follow you there. Brilliant. So I can see your digital hands. Thank you very much. I'm pleased that you can hear me perfectly. Great. Okay, so before we move to our main content today, and it's great to see so many new people on the webinar this morning, I would just like to say a little bit about policy and practice. So we believe in the power of data and technology to change lives, much like many of yourselves on the call today, and we're very passionate about that. And the way that we do that, many of you might know us from our policy work, which particularly our 19 billion report that we're going to talk a little bit about today, that it was covered in the media, and you might have seen us on the different work and pension select committees giving evidence, for example. So yeah, people know us from our policy work, and that knowledge of the policy system has helped us to build tools to make a difference, one of which is our low-income family tracker platform, our LIFT platform, where we work with over 100 local authorities to use data to identify vulnerable households, target support to them, and then track change over time. And in addition, the OG of the group is our Better Off calculator, which is recommended by gov.uk. It's one of the 3 calculators on gov.uk. Helps over 10,000 people every day, and it puts £720 million into people's pockets every year, which sounds impressive. But as we're going to talk about soon, it's a drop in the ocean as to what support's available, which leads me nicely onto our agenda. And basically what we're going to be talking about today is very much focusing on water. So what is the outlook? We know that water bills are rising, and that around about £900 million, nearly £1 billion of water support is unclaimed, which is just quite staggering. So we're going to deep dive into that, have a look at that. We're also going to look at why support is unclaimed by millions of households, and also a bit about how water bills themselves are created and calculated, and how they might vary across the country, creating regional differences and indeed postcode lotteries. So we're just going to talk about that. But I think the star of the show will be our guest speaker from Northumbrian Water, who I'll introduce you to in a moment. But really, we're going to listen to the fantastic work that Northumbrian Water is doing to improve its customer experience. And as I have a bit of a spoiler alert there, identifying over £7 million in unclaimed support in just 7 months. How did they do that, and what does that mean? And then we're going to talk about some of the software that can help, and indeed Q&As at the end. So hopefully that's what you're expecting to hear today. And you are in the right place. So I would just like to introduce you to our speakers today. So if I could ask our speakers, our panelists, to turn your cameras on and your mics on, just so that we can put faces to voices and go from there. So my name is Janet Harkin. I head up the marketing function at Policy and Practice, and delighted to see you all today. My colleague Tylor-Maria, do you want to say hello, Tylor-Maria?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tylor-Maria. I'm a Senior Policy and Data Analyst at Policy and Practice. Very excited to be here with you this morning.
Lovely, thanks Tylor-Maria. And our guest speaker, Lisa Connell from Northumbrian Water. Hi Lisa.
Hi, yeah. So I'm the customer services manager for Northumbrian Water, working on inclusivity, which is really all around us supporting our vulnerable customers, both affordability and priority services register.
Lovely, great to have you on the call, Lisa. And my colleague Ed McNamara. Morning, Ed.
Morning, everyone. I'm Ed McNamara, the Software Account Manager, Policy and Practice, and I look after our utility clients.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you so much. So more from our guest speakers very shortly. But before we move on to Tylor-Maria, I would just like to serve the first of our polls. And really, what you can see on the screen basically is, why do you think that water social tariffs are unclaimed? What is your experience? Hopefully that's coming up on your screen right now. Yeah. So as always with our polls, you may decide that there is a combination of the different answers. So if you could choose your number one choice, that would be best. So basically what we're asking is, if you could choose one of these options, which would it be? Why do you think water social tariffs are unclaimed? Is it because of the complexity of the eligibility criteria? Is it because of a lack of awareness? Is it because of stigma? Is it because of the increasing fragmentation of support? Or is there another reason, or perhaps you don't know? If there is another reason, please do drop that into the chat or into the Q&A section, and I would love to read them out. Great, I can see that the vast majority of people have voted. So what I'm going to do is close the poll, and then by way of handing over to Tylor-Maria, ask you to comment, Tylor-Maria. So let me do that right now and share the results on the screen. Wow, there we go. What do you make of those results, Tylor-Maria?
Yeah, I love them actually. It plays into what I was expecting actually. That majority of the time, a lot of us don't really know what we're eligible for, and that's part of the reason why people aren't claiming all that they can. And we see this in particular with water social tariffs. A lot of the reason why they're underclaimed and unclaimed is because there's a lack of awareness about what their water company can offer. So I think this gives us a really good way to set up the rest of this discussion. And just to touch on the other answers here, it's not to say that these other things don't play a role. So complexity of eligibility criteria, stigma has 0%, which in fact actually plays a huge role in whether or not people take up benefits. But increasing fragmentation of support and other things, all of these other factors actually play a huge role in whether or not people take up support. But I think namely, we can all say that if you don't know what's out there, how are you going to actually take it up? So thank you all for participating in this, and I think this will nicely tee up what we'll be discussing for the rest of our time together.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tylor-Maria, and take it away. Thank you.
Great, let me quickly turn my camera on. Okay, here I am. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Tylor-Maria, and I'm a senior policy and data analyst at Policy and Practice. And as I mentioned, I think the poll is a really good way to kick us off to talk about water social tariffs and how companies are plugging the support gap to help families stay afloat amidst rising costs. For my time that I have with you today, I'll be speaking about 4 main points to give a nice foundation for Lisa, who'll be speaking after me and presenting a very, very powerful case study of how Northumbrian Water is helping to improve customer successes with some of the amazing data tools that they've rolled out with us, and as well as Ed talking about how you can take some practical actions to help customers and residents meet their water bills. But before that, I'll be speaking a bit more about what to expect from 2024 in terms of the annual household bill, and then bringing in the important picture about how over 5 million households are missing out on water bill support. In addition to that, I'll be giving a very basic primer of how water bills are calculated and the ways that they vary. And all of this and that primer will be used to then understand the practical steps that companies and councils, as well as residents, all that they can do to help meet their water costs. Next slide. So, as we have heard from this summer, water bills are expected to increase by 40% from January 2024. Often water is, it seems to be, given the way that the media has tended to focus mostly on energy, water is often the forgotten utility. And it makes sense in some ways. Energy costs have gone up by 82% since July of 2021. However, I think this webinar and just in general in terms of household pressures, it's really important to bring water into this picture. We're expecting that water bills are to increase by about 40%, which means that the average annual household bill will go up from 450 pounds to 680 pounds. So that's an additional 232 pounds that households are expected to find over the course of the next year. And given that these are just average rates, I'll be talking about some of the reasons why this may vary. So in some ways, some households could see even larger increases than what's reported on this slide. Now, Ofwat, which is the regulatory body for water in England and Wales, is currently reviewing company plans of affordability as well as environmental measures as part of the Price Review 2024. And this will lock in company plans for the next 5 years. In some cases already, Ofwat has already mandated that some companies lower their bills. Now, before I move on to the next slide, I think this is a really important contextualizing picture of what households are going to be facing from January 2024. However, I think there's an important element to the story that as policy and practice we often talk about, which is the picture relating to support. This picture can be way worse if we, when we bring in the fact that several millions of households aren't necessarily taking up the support to ensure that they can actually access affordable water. Next slide. So you've already probably heard Janet mention, but we have put out our report on the 19 billion pounds of unclaimed support that goes missing, that households are missing out on every year. And in this report, we've estimated that 5,714,000 households across the UK are eligible for, but not claiming 900 million pounds of water social tariffs every year. Next slide. Now, so much water support goes unclaimed each year, meaning that the 232 extra pounds that households are expected to find, lots of households are going without adequate support to actually meet that increase in costs, yet alone to continue to stay afloat at the current rate as it is now. And a lot of the support that goes unclaimed is oftentimes due to low awareness and the complexity of eligibility criteria. As we've already discussed in the poll, lots of households don't know what's out there and may not put their hand up for that support. In addition to that, many households might struggle to make sense of all the different eligibility criteria for a variety of schemes that companies might offer, or they might simply not want to tell their story 5, 6, 7 times in order to get that support. It might create a barrier for entry for some of these households. So in some ways, that hassle might just deter a household altogether from actually getting the support they need to meet their costs. To provide a bit of meat on the bones for these oftentimes a bit abstract theories, Ofwat's recent study in May 2023 could be quite helpful to contextualize what this picture of low awareness and complex eligibility criteria means practically. In the study, they found that 3 in 10 customers were aware of the financial support available from their water company, i.e., another way of presenting that statistic is 70%. So 7 out of 10 customers were unaware that their water company actually offered financial support. And the cherry on top of that, sadly, is that 7% of customers reported having received any support to meet their bills. Next slide. Now, before we dig in, I think it's really important to highlight that it is so important that all households should have access to affordable water. This presentation that we have today, and the reason why we do what we do, is to highlight the ways that your council, your company, or you yourself, if you're a resident, can actually help to overcome the support gap and to help meet your costs. Now, for the rest of this presentation that I'll be speaking to you, or the time that I have to speak with you, I'll be highlighting some of the ways that your water bill is calculated, what goes into your water bill, and some of the factors that might impact how much you actually pay every month. And all of that is to highlight the different ways that companies and councils and you yourself, if you're a household, can actually address your rising costs. So as you can see here, water bills can vary based on metered or unmetered rates. So as a very quick overview, water bills are comprised of actually two separate bills. So there's a water bill, and then there's your sewerage bill, and there's a standing charge for both your water and your sewerage. And in addition to those standing charges, you have one of these three rates that are listed on the slide. So you could have a fixed rate, and this is based on your property's rateable value. That was based on the letting price or the letting value of the property in the 1990s. Then there is the metered rate, which is basically how much water your household uses or consumes. And then there's the assessed rate. So in the case that your household is unable to have a water meter fitted, you'll have an assessed charge based on your property, number of occupants, and the average water bill of your company. Now, in the media, you'll see a lot of articles talking about how you can save based on the different types of rates you can have added to your bill. Oftentimes it's framed as a discussion around, oh, can you save if you move to a meter? And based on some of the research that we've done, it's not always clear cut that you will always save if you have a metered property. There are some cases, depending on your company, that you can only apply and receive a social tariff if you are on a meter. But overall, you can actually find yourself saving at any of these three different rates. But I think there's a helpful rule of thumb that Citizens Advice has put out, saying that you can save in general if you are on a meter, in the case that you have fewer people in your house than bedrooms, then it's likely that going over to a metered rate can actually save you some money. But in general, any of these rates, you can find yourself either paying less or paying more, depending on your household circumstance, how much water you use, the property that you have, or the social tariff that you take up. Next slide. So the next point that I'm going to highlight about how your bill might vary, it depends on, when you're in England and Wales, the water company that services your area. So as part of the most recent blog that I've written on this, that just went out yesterday, we've done a huge desk research on 19 different water and sewerage companies and highlighted the differences in water and sewerage standing charges, social tariffs, and debt support that each of these companies can offer their residents. So the infographic that you see on the left hand of the slide highlights some headline figures, but if you want to actually do a deeper dive into what the different companies offer, feel free to go and check out that blog, where you'll find a very, very hefty chart, but a hefty chart in a good way. It'll highlight all that your company can offer you and hopefully point you in the direction to receiving some support if you're struggling to meet your bills. So feel free to head on over to the Policy and Practice website to look for more. And it's also linked at the bottom of the slides if you're curious. And if you're from a water company, please have a look and let us know about the chart as well. But just as an overview, the supplier that you have does impact the amount of your annual or your monthly water bill. And just some headline figures of what that actually looks like and how the water companies compare. In the first navy blue box, you'll see that water and sewerage charges can run the gamut depending on your company. So water standing charges across a year could be anywhere from £25 to £50, depending on your depending on the company. The full sewerage charge can be anywhere from £60 to £110 across the year. And lastly, the statistic that I presented earlier was that the average annual bill for 2024 could be up to £680, and that could vary depending on whether you consume more or less than an average household. In addition to standing charges, companies offer different social tariffs across England and Wales. So I found that the least generous social tariff or scheme offers 15% off of household bills, whereas the most generous scheme offers 100% off of your household bill, i.e. you don't have a bill. And that's a very huge difference depending on your location, what companies you are serviced by. In addition to that, 6 companies offer price caps. If I remember correctly, I think the most generous price cap said that you could pay as little as £96 per year. And lastly, all of the 19 companies that we looked at offer the water shore tariff. The water shore tariff is specifically for households that have specific medical conditions that use lots of water, are on specific benefits, and have children. So there is additional help for some of these families as well. Lastly, in terms of debt support, all companies offer the Water Direct scheme, which is a way that your water bill is taken out from your benefits if you're on benefits and you have some level of arrears. All companies offer some sort of payment plan or payment break. So if you are behind, you can say or the company will give you anywhere from 30 days to 90 days to have low or no payments with the intention that you'll catch up later if you're unable to meet your bills. 9 companies offer a restart or a matching payment scheme, which is essentially when, let's say you're in arrears, you'll start to pay some of those arrears for a specific time, and then the company might match your payments or completely write off your arrears after you've paid them for about a year. And 9 companies offer hardship funds to clear your debts. So this is the case where if you are in deep arrears, the company will just clear your debts completely. Next slide. So different levels of support that a water company can offer can affect low-income households. In some ways, the companies have great amounts of flexibility to design discount schemes to address local needs. Each company can survey customers about their tariffs through willingness to pay research and then set rates accordingly. And this is quite powerful. Companies can survey their customers to ensure that they have confidence in in some of the work that they're doing, and try to take measures to improve customer success and customer outcomes through using data tools and other new schemes to help to address their need. Lisa and the work that's happening at Northumbrian is a very great example of a company whose proactive approach and use of data is used to help to make sure that customers can seamlessly apply to social tariffs, reduce the friction to apply, and help put more money back in the pockets of residents. So there's a lot of great things that can come with that flexibility. But at the same rate, the other side of the coin is that sometimes these regional differences can create postcode lotteries for the available support, and oftentimes there's unequal conditions for accessing the support. So there are 2 sides to this coin with this, and although it's good to talk about both sides, I don't want this to be a dead end here. I think data and data tools, analytic tools, can be used to make sure that all low-income households can actually afford this needed essential. Next slide. And the last piece of the puzzle that I want to highlight is water bills can vary based on the part of the UK that a household is in. So in England and Wales, the water or sewerage company that a household uses is based on their location. So as I just mentioned about postcode lotteries, different locations might have different levels of support, and sometimes that can create unequal conditions for accessing support for different households. In Scotland, water is provided by Scottish Water, and costs are included in one's council tax bill. Costs are included in council tax bills. And very notably, households claiming council tax support can also receive a reduction in their water and sewerage bills by up to 35%. And this is automatic, so the customer does not have to do anything to opt into that support. It's automatically applied, which is quite a notable approach that I think English and Welsh water companies and councils can take note of in terms of trying to increase the take-up of water social tariffs. And lastly, in Northern Ireland, water is provided by Northern Ireland Water, which is a government-owned company since 2007, and there are no advertised tariffs. I bring up this point to highlight that not only do water bills vary based on where you are, but I think this highlights the important role that a council can actually play in trying to help households actually tap into cost-saving measures. And the Scottish approach, as I mentioned, is quite notable for doing that. Next, and I think my last slide. As mentioned, and I'll toss this off to Lisa, who'll be able to highlight especially the company point even better than I can in the next 2 or 3 minutes that I have with you. But there are very many practical ways that councils, companies, and households can tap into cost-saving approaches to water bills. So the first is a note for councils. Councils can begin the conversations with water and sewerage companies about social tariffs and remove customer action to apply. This is what I was mentioning with the Scottish approach. Opt-in or opt-out strategies using administrative data can be quite powerful ways of reducing barriers to take up, especially when we're thinking about lack of awareness. Households may not put their hand up for support. So in any ways that administrative data can be used to remove customer action, that's definitely a path that council should be thinking about doing. And if this is something that you're interested in and you're coming from a council and want to hear more about this, please get in touch with us, because our low income family tracker platform is a powerful tool that councils can use to help increase the take up of benefits and to help remove customer action to apply. And there are a few other things I can say about that, but please feel free to check out the blog if you're interested in what that actually looks like and other ways that councils can help. Moving on to companies. Companies can increase operations capacity by using a benefits calculator. And Lisa can develop this point a bit more and highlight this to its fullest better than I can. But just to steal a little bit of her thunder, Northumbrian Water and a few other water companies have introduced the apply once process using the Better Off calculator and have reduced dropout rates from about 35% to 0%, meaning that households who are looking to apply to a social tariff can complete a benefits check whilst applying for their tariff scheme at the same time. So customers don't have to tell their story multiple times, but they can submit one application and actually apply for support. So Lisa, I've hopefully teed you up well for that, and she'll talk about that in more color. And lastly, if you're a household, please contact your water or sewerage company for a social tariff and debt support. As mentioned, 7% of households actually take up what's available to them. So if you're a household on here and you're kind of wondering what's going on, there is support out there. Just put your hand up and give them a call and see what they might be able to offer you. That is the end of this presentation, and I'll hand it over to Lisa, who will be able to speak about what they've done at Northumbrian Water.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Tylor-Maria. Lisa, over to you.
Thank you for that lovely intro and lining me up. Yes, I wanted to take this opportunity really just to share with you the journey that we've been on at Northumbrian Water and the great partnership we've had with Policy and Practice. And really for us, and the key from this is improving the customer experience, opening up and making the very most of that contact we have with customers all around our social tariffs. So if we move on to the next slide, just to give you a little bit of an overview of what I'm going to cover, I think you'll see from Tylor-Maria, there's quite a complexity around the level of different water companies here, the support that's available. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of what's available for us at Northumbrian Water. We also talk around where we were, what was the situation we were in before we really started utilising the power of policy and practice, thinking about the challenges were for both us as a business in trying to promote and use our scheme to the best of their ability, and also what were the barriers were for our customers. Bit of update details around what we delivered, and then a little bit of a snippet around just those potential unclaimed benefits that Tylor-Maria mentioned there earlier, and just the size of the potential prize for customers that we can do. So if we move on, first of all, looking at Northumbrian Water, first thing I often get asked is I don't sound like I come from the north, and as you'll see from this little picture here, Northumbrian Water is actually made up of Northumbrian Water based up in the northern area with 2.7 million customers, and also 270 miles down the road, Essex and Suffolk Water is a subsidiary part of that company. So we operate under Northumbrian Water, but we've also have an Essex and Suffolk Water. We've got a slightly smaller customer database, but we've got roughly 4.3 million customers over those two operating supply areas. I think you'll see from the right hand side of my slide, our real purpose is there about providing what customers need from us, and that is really making sure we've got a sustainable, great supply of water, and also that it's affordable for all of our customers. So we have to do a lot of work to make sure that we can deliver what works for customers and make it really easily accessible. All the schemes are on offer, great, but if people aren't applying or being applied through the partnerships, then obviously they're missing out. So we move on to our next slide. I wanted to give a bit of background around what support is actually available for Northumbrian Water customers. As mentioned earlier, that the support, some is consistent across all of the water companies, but many of the tariffs that we offer are very individual to the individual water companies, and the creation of them has been worked off often in partnership with customers about understanding what's the gap areas in the areas that we supply, and how are we best to design tariffs that will really offer the most support to those most in need. So this is a little summary of what's on offer for us here for customers, and it's really wide ranging. Customers often aren't aware about the support that's available. That's not just the tariffs, they're also not aware sometimes of just how flexible we can be around payment arrangements. The Water Direct that was mentioned earlier, the payment breaks, again, that's a real surprise when we can say, right, we can do an instant 3-month hold for you whilst you get yourself back on your feet without making payments, and then spread them across. We talked about bill cap and water shore, so that is there to support customers who are with a medical condition or a large family who are claiming means tested benefits, but need to use that bit more water over an average bill. So that's about capping their bill at an average consumption. When we move down to the bottom row that you'll see here, we talk about the low income discount. And as was said, there can be a wide range of what discounts we offer. We offer up to 50% discount, so that's quite significant. For Northumbrian Water in particular, we've got one of the lowest combined water and sewerage bills, so we're around £360 a year, so a 50% discount will make a significant difference. So we're offering for our customers a low income discount up to 50%, really focusing on customers on pension credit as well, because we know they'll be in a reduced income position. And we also offer debt support that was referenced earlier. So we will, with customers, when we've worked with them and they can see they haven't got enough income to cover their essential household bills, we can also offer that 50% discount, and we'll do a debt write-off scheme. So customers pay a reduced bill for 2 years, then we'll write off their arrears irrespective of the value of that arrears that they have with us. That's a real life-changing experience for lots of our customers when they're communicating with us, and we can show as we go through how PIP helps us identify those customers. On what we've been doing for some time is using Benefit Checker. So this is using the policy and practice tool for the Better Off calculator. We've been promoting that for some time for customers. just so they can see what else they're entitled to. So that's been on offer, and that was the start of our partnership with Policy and Practice, just promoting that service, giving it as an extra bit of help for customers on our website, and we were seeing regular visitors of their sort of 400 a month, looking at that and seeing what they were entitled to. We also do offer the money and mental health advice that we referenced before, because we know what a difficult time when you're struggling with money and trying to cope with trying to contact everybody. That can really be a difficult time. So on the right hand side, we mentioned the eligibility checker, and this is what we previously had on offer, and this was a big step forward for us with helping customers answer a few questions and find out which of our many schemes might be right for them. And that was great, but it was the first step. If it said what you might be eligible for, but you then were sent off on a journey to apply for it. So if we move on to the next screen, to the next one, I wanted to really highlight where we were at that time when we knew, right, we've got lots of different support that's available, but customers were confused. They weren't sure which ones they were eligible for. When we explained criteria for eligibility, there was a lack of understanding. You know, as our largest scheme, which is there for low income, is set up that says you've got a household income under £17,005, and your bill needs to be more than 3% of your net household income. Sounds easy, and when I look at it and we deal with it day in, day out, we totally understand it, but you can imagine from a customer's perspective, what does 3% mean? What figures am I looking at? What part of that is income and which bit isn't? So it's a real confusion, and that puts the barriers in, stops customers often pursuing with an application. We didn't offer an online application. We very much said, you know, we can give you some guidance on the phone. If you're eligible, then you need to send us in your proof, and that proof of income was benefit documents, it was income bank statements, and all stuff that people often weren't comfortable to share. So there was some concern around the security, and often it was difficult for them to source that information to share with us. We've mentioned earlier about the different criteria by water company, and I should have mentioned for the Essex and Suffolk area of our supply, we only supply water for that area. The sewerage charges are actually supplied by either Thames Water or Anglian Water. So when we look at the schemes, customers regularly get confused between which water company they're with. They get confused. Have they contacted one? Have they contacted both? And there's different application approaches and rules, and I think it just added to the confusion overall. So from a customer experience in total, I think we could say it wasn't very smooth, didn't feel easy. And we've got a big push that we want to increase the number of customers that we're getting support. We've got, for us now, over 115,000 customers on support, but we've got set ourselves really ambitious aims of increasing those significantly, and to increase them we really need to do that in an easy way for our customers. We found it was really inefficient for us when we reviewed the applications, because as I mentioned, there's lots of bits of paper coming in. We've then got to review those, understand them, check eligibility, go back to customers and go, you haven't provided everything, can you send something else? It was really inefficient for us as a business to process them, when all we really want to do is help the right customers get the support. And although we were promoting policy and practice, we weren't using it to its full potential. So if we move on, it's important to say here, we've got we'd already set up a relationship with policy and practice. We were already incredibly pleased with the number of customers that were already visiting the policy and practice better off calculator that we were promoting on our website. But actually the conversations I had with the team at policy and practice were, you're missing a trick here. we've got some capabilities within that tool that we can enhance to really deliver something for your customers that's going to improve that experience with us. It's going to give that customer what they've already got with the benefit maximisation, but actually on top of that, we can check eligibility for all of those schemes you offer in one easy transaction. That's a huge change for customers, for us. So it provided us the opportunity to really design what we wanted that tool to look like, using the framework of the Better Off calculator, but then in adding the enhancements of, this is the criteria for our schemes, this is what customers will need to meet to be eligible. These are the added little bits that we'd like to include on that Better Off calculator journey with us, so that we can make sure we can cover all of the support that is available, and also give customers the option to just share a little bit more info about what they want to share about their circumstances at the time. So that meant for us, we could then offer our customers an online option to apply. They'd get an instant decision, rather than what they were happening in the past, sending us a piece of documentation. We could take up to 10 working days to review it and go back to us. And what we found was 40% of the time we'd go back and go, you need to send us something else. We haven't got everything we need. It was a one-stop for all of the schemes. So I think when we talked earlier about the support that's available, customers would be applying for one tariff, being a low income, but actually the best tariff for them would have been our reduced bill scheme, which is there for customers who are struggling financially. So it guided for them. It did all the hard work of saying, what's the best one? And alongside that, what it could also do is look at what our bill reduction could look like, and any partnering sewerage company for us in Essex and Suffolk, and whether they would be eligible there. So on the right hand side is a little bit of an example of what is provided for our teams when they complete an assessment. Of it will say, this is what the bill reduction could look like for Essex and Suffolk Water. This is what the bill reduction could look like for this one for Anglian Water. Tells you how much the monthly charge would have been. As you can see, the 50% discount they're seeing across the way by that bill. So that's a £230 saving that the customers got through 10 minutes that they're using to complete it. As part of that process, as we know, and the great thing that the Better Off calculator already provides is the income maximisation, identifying any benefits they'd be eligible for along the way. And what we saw, this was a way for us to get more customers to get that benefit. You know, we had lots of customers applying, but actually going through the policy and practice tool meant that they were getting two things for one, really. Apply for a tariff, and on top of that you get that benefit maximisation, plus all of the other signposting that we know happens at the end of that journey. So overall for the customer, it's improved, lot less delays, so we can respond to them much quicker because we've got an instant decision. The customer knows there and then if they're not eligible. It reduced for us our repeat contact because we didn't have to go back asking for extra information, because we knew as soon as we received it that would be a complete with all the information that we needed to receive. So if we can move on to the next slide. I think, like I mentioned earlier, the fantastic bit is customers are getting more for just applying for their tariffs. They've been directed to the right support that's available for them, but also on top of that, we've identified potential missing benefits. These are some figures that policy and practice can provide through the reporting that's through their tool, that says from the customers that have used the tool, because we've directed through them to apply for our tariffs, 96% of those customers were eligible for benefits. That's 7.2 million, as I said, that's eligible for them. Some of those benefits they may already be claiming, Many of them, they probably were not, but they've also then got signposted off with an easy way to, this is how you apply and this is the information. That works out at, say, nearly £1,400 on average per household from that information. And they've also had a personalised solution from us. We've been able to, because we understand their circumstances more, and that's the key driver of setting up any scheme for them, understanding their circumstances so that they get the right discount. And we've given them a personalised solution. Often we've got, say, a 50% discount. On top of that, we've set them up a payment arrangement that's affordable, and we've been able to look at seeing if we can help them with a debt write-off as well. On top of that, as I say, mentions that PSR, Priority Services Register, which is there to support our vulnerable customers. We can sign up as well as part of that journey with us. So it's really around all of that vulnerable support, all wrapped up in one, provided for customers 24 hours a day, time that suits them, in a quick and easy transaction. I think what we've got on here, the next slide is just about our next steps, because it's great. We've already got a process in place. It's going really well. We're going to be expanding how customers can interact with that tool now. So currently we offer it as an online tool, so customers can use it via our website to apply. We've just trained up our teams to be able to offer it on the phone as well, so that we can do that supported application process for them. And the huge benefit from that is, at the end of the call, the discount will be applied. You've discussed what your payment arrangement will look like. We've already given them, hopefully, the great news that they've got a half price bill, and we've been able to help them through that journey, all in one call. Mentioned there about sharing applications. So at the moment it will highlight whether they may be eligible for a discount with Anglian Water, and we're shortly going to be able to let customers agree to send those applications to both customers, so both companies at one time. So a true one-stop application process for the customer. And also we're planning, we mentioned earlier, they talked around, we're looking at the price review with Ofwat for where water companies are going to look to deliver over the next price review, so the next 5-year period. We've set a really ambitious aim of eradicating water poverty for our customers, anybody who's paid more than 5% of their net income to pay for water bills. So we really need to keep expanding the services we offer. We need to keep being innovative with the tariffs, and the policy and practice tool allows us to do that in a way that supports customers by not having to understand new tariff application processes. We'll aim to enhance policy and practice with new schemes as we design them and introduce them over the period of time. We also get the benefit of understanding that the type of customers who are completing our application through the Better Off calculator to help us understand really who to target those schemes to. So there's lots of data that we're being sourced with from this to really help us steer who do we need to help, how do we help them, how do we put the right scheme in place to make sure the discounts go to those who are going to really benefit most. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I've got a few questions that have come in for you, and I know that was your next slide, but if I may, I will ask for them to be kept till the end when we've got other Q&A from other bits. So brilliant, thanks very much, Lisa. Let me now hand over to my colleague Ed McNamara, who's just going to cover a couple more points on the Better Off calculator. Lisa did such a great job of telling us how it works in Northumbrian. Ed's just going to cover a few more points. Over to you. Thanks, Ed.
Hi. So yeah, I'm going to go through sort of the practicalities of how that might look like and some of the services that we've delivered at Policy and Practice. First up, we've got here discussing what the better off calculator is. So what we do is we create a self-serve but also an advisor version of the tool that allows customers and tenants or people you're supporting to go on the website that you posted on, or maybe a customer portal, see what support they're eligible for themselves, apply for those benefits, but also send data in advance of meetings to the organization. Then the organization will pick up, and they've now not only empowered the customer with financial sustainability themselves, but also they can deal with that rising demand that they're receiving, because you could spend your time on the phone collecting the information that they could often enter themselves, such as their rent, their date of birth, their income, and it allows you to focus more on the impact side of the conversation. Next slide, please, Janet. The next bit we're looking at is the type of applications we created. So we understand that every sector is very different, and we cover from our traditional sectors like citizen advice, local authorities, housing associations, to some of the newer sectors that we've done a lot of development with, as this has gone through with the water sector. So we understand that we have to make it bespoke to each area that we're dealing with, and that way everyone's questions are different, the information they need to collect is different. What we're trying to do is create a single universal application. So rather than having a income maximization tool on the side, and then a social tariff application here, and then some other forms that someone might have to fill into in order to be to receive triage support, we try to put it all in one place, so the person could just tell once that they're struggling with their bills and get all the support that they need immediately. We also make sure that the questions are intentionally streamlined, so that we're not providing any irrelevant information. So, for example, if someone selects that they're a single parent, then we show questions about a child, but then also remove anything about couples. And we also make sure that we customize it to your branding, so it feels like they're still on your website, they're talking to NWL, doesn't feel like they're going anywhere else. Next slide, please, Janet. We also tried to make it as most accurate as possible, as we understand that the results that we create have to be so accurate that we understand exactly if someone's eligible for social tariff, but also so that people can make astute life decisions according to the results. So we are the most accurate calculator out there. We have a massive and amazing policy team working on it 24/7. And we're also making sure that we're looking at everything. Now, the statutory benefits are great, and you may see that support out and about there, but we go the step further that no one else does. We're looking at not only just universal credit, child benefit, and council tax support, but also the water social tariffs, but also warm homes discount schemes, but also Wi-Fi and social tariffs, travel discount cards, and there's so many different things that someone could be eligible for. And there's often neglected groups that we find that aren't receiving the support they should be getting due to their cases being considered difficult, and then it's hard to address them if you're not a benefit expert. So we don't like that. So we've tailored it to be able to support students, people over the age of 60, mixed age couples, but also non-UK nationals, and supporting a lot of organisations dealing with situations such as the Homes for Ukraine scheme. Next slide, please. And this is where we mentioned stuff that we're looking at additional support on. So you may see on BBC or gov.uk pages, there's like 30, 40 different things someone may be eligible for, which is great to raise awareness. But the issue is someone potentially going through a mental health crisis associated with debt, struggling to pay the bills currently, has to go through them one by one, figure out the complex eligibility process, and then go apply for them. So we don't like that. What we've done is made sure that we've tailored it specific to individual circumstances. So not only are you looking at statutory benefits, but I'm showing you, looks like from your postcode, you're in the Severn Trent social tariff area. We've modeled that in, we know you're eligible for it, here's how you can go apply. And also looking elsewhere, and we've recently collaborated with EDF, if anyone was here on our most recent webinar, looking at energy support that's out there, so you don't have to sit on hold for 3 hours waiting for support and make a paper submission for an application. You can just send your data straight to that organisation. So we're looking at everything, and you have to be holistic with this type of income maximisation in order to best support households who are really struggling during the cost of living crisis. And this is the bit where we're looking to the future, things that we'd be more excited about, some amazing developments we've done. So we've got an API version of the calculator, which basically just means it can seamlessly, really quickly integrate with your existing forms. So if you've got a web form that you created, if you've got a system you're currently using that you really like, you don't want to remove away from your, your front end that you created, that's absolutely fine. We could integrate with it, which basically means we'll take a few key bits of information and identify households that are really eligible for support. And it's a very quick turnaround in order to still get that support, to have to change everything from the beginning. We're also looking at open banking opportunities, and this is a way, it seems like the sectors are turning towards it, and open banking opportunities are we've heard a lot about it around the market. So what we've done is made sure that if a customer wants to look down that route, we can do to pre-populate their information and their income and expenditure information onto the calculator. And we also have the ability to integrate. So obviously we're trying to cut down as much operational expenditure as possible. So anything that we churn out from the calculator, anything that we've collected, we can integrate and send that information to your CRMs. There's also one thing that we're looking at, which is portfolio analysis. And that is where we take a book of your data. So if some of you think that you want to have a look at how many of your customers are missing out benefits, give us 1,000 of your accounts at random. We can analyze it and let you know how much support is missing out. And I guarantee you everyone will be surprised with the results. Next slide, please, Janet. And the last thing I want to look into is some of the stuff that Lisa mentioned, and this is our data porting and access to our Better Off Calculator network. And what data porting means is that we can start to collaborate with the industry and the sectors and the partners that we have at the Better Off Calculator. And those include, firstly, our gov.uk version. So we sit on the gov.uk website where we get 2.5 million people using our calculator each year. Well, what if by the postcode we know that you're eligible for your water social tariff? And then we can then send that application direct to you from another calculator that's used it. That also includes collaboration with our partners. So if, for example, Northumbrian Water have a housing association that they know operate within their remit and have a load of vulnerable customers that they're dealing with, that housing association could connect to Northumbrian Water and send applications direct to them. Now, we're also looking at passporting customer information as well. And what that means is if you've got support services that you guys work with, for example, a local charity bureau or maybe a debt organisation, a lot of them we have a great relationship with, and instead of having to simply do a cold referral to that organisation where you just say speak to this debt organisation, what we can do is transfer all the information that you've already gathered and collected that they've spent time explaining to you straight to them, and they can pick up from where you left off, making it just a smoother customer journey. And again, we're beating that drum of just if someone can tell you that they're struggling once and get all the support they need, and that's the ideal outcome. I think that's everything on there, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions at the later stages. But the last bit I just want to make sure I cover is just the lift bit. So this is not necessarily my remit, but I wanted to make sure that we all heard this. With the utility sector being quite interested in specifically is with our collaboration with our lift dashboard and our local authority partners, we are very keen to make sure that these sectors are collaborating with each other. So using our lift dashboard, we can identify proactively households that are eligible for utility social tariff support, and using our modelling we can identify those households and let you guys know which households that you may not know about, hidden pockets of poverty, or previously unknown households who were vulnerable customers that are eligible for support, and just target them. And that means you don't have to spend the time and effort on a marketing campaign or an outreach campaign and hoping that they come to you. You simply deliver that support to them and you target that support as well. I believe that's it.
I believe it is. Thank you so much, Ed. That's really comprehensive and great to hear a bit more about the solutions that we can offer. So just to wrap the webinar up and move over to the Q&As, Tylor-Maria talked about water being the forgotten utility, and it mustn't be in terms of this. We're still in this cost of living crisis, so we're seeing that bills are set to increase by 40%. I think that we're going to clarify that date actually. It's going to be during or after 2024. But this is a rising bill and it's going to go up to around about £680. So we heard how it varies across the country, can vary based on metered or unmetered rates, location and water company. And I do urge you to again have a look at Tylor-Maria's blog for more detail on that. So also we heard at the same time that 5 million families are missing out on around about £900 million, just short of £1 billion in water bill support every year, which is just a staggering amount of money that could really be helping people. Low awareness and the administrative complexity is really sort of feeding into that. So great then to hear how the work of Northumbrian Water is tackling that, and the great results that they've had so far in just 7 months, identifying around about £7 million for customers using our calculator. And as Tylor-Maria said, and we heard there's actually, while it's a grim picture, there is stuff that councils, water companies and households can do to address this, to make the water bills more affordable. And thanks to Ed for taking us through some of the data solutions that can help. So that's the quick wrap up of what we've heard today. Thank you everybody for the questions and answers. If I may now move on to the Q&As and ask my colleagues to turn their cameras on and their mics on, and let's pick up some of the Q&As. Brilliant, thank you. Tylor-Maria, could I come to you first up, please, just on that point about the time frame of the bills and when we're expecting them to rise, if you could just pick up that.
Yes, absolutely. So I think to go back to what the price review 2024 is, so companies have just submitted their plans at the beginning of October, so the 2nd of October, and they're being reviewed over 2024. So the 40% increase is their proposed plans that are being reviewed in 2024. So that's where the 2024 number comes in. But they are to go into effect. So the final determination will come at the end of 2024 to be seen impacting households from the end of 2024, beginning of 2025 in April. So just to clarify that, in case that was a bit unclear on my part and how I presented that, but hopefully that provides a bit more clarity that the 40% increase is what is being proposed over the course of 2024 to hit households later.
Brilliant, lovely. Thanks, Tylor-Maria. So if I could get into, Lisa, your presentation understandably stimulated a number of questions. Lots of people are very interested in what you had to say. So if I could just dig in. So somebody says here, what if you live in a property where a water meter cannot be fitted? Yeah, and what support is there for people who cannot get water meters?
Yeah, I think with regards to water meters, that is a choice for customers to look at to try and lower their bills, and we'd always promote that. But there are circumstances where they're not possible to fit. It often can be supply pipe work, etc., or they're on a shared supply. And for those customers, when they apply, if they can't have a meter fitted, then we'll offer the assessed charge. Now, the assessed charge caps your consumption and average bill. So for us, it would be an average measured bill would be the level that you would be paying for that. And once you're on that, you're entitled to all of the schemes that we've referenced earlier. That's just how we would class your bill, but then you can look at your low income discount. We can look at our bill reduction scheme. So still lots of support, irrespective of whether you're on a meter or not, or on an assessed charge.
Brilliant, lovely, thank you. And Lisa, I know that you probably haven't answered this as well, and maybe Tylor-Maria could come on this too, but another person is asking, how do we remove the postcode lottery that exists for water consumers? We heard Tylor-Maria talk about that. What would you say on?
And I think there's been lots of work from Ofwat, who are the regulator for the water industry, around how can we try and remove some of those challenges. I think, we know specifically in the support arena, which I'm sure a lot of the people watching are there, it is confusing. Who are they? What supply have you got? What's on offer? And there's been a lot of move with by Ofwat to trying to give us some guidance around what's a single social tariff. Now, it hasn't been agreed to roll out for all water companies, but I know that they're definitely suggesting that companies bring in those kind of principles across the board to align, to give an opportunity that those low-income customers who are paying more than 5% can get that support. So it is something the water companies are talking around and trying to find a good solution for, to make it easier for customers, really.
Brilliant, lovely, thanks very much, Lisa. If I could stick with you, Lisa, and then I'm going to come to Tylor-Maria and Ed, give Lisa a little bit of a break. Is there any help available for single parents who aren't receiving benefits but are struggling on low fixed incomes? Definitely
an area that we can support. We've got, as I mentioned, a low income discount. That's for households where they've got under 17,005 and paying more than 3%. But we also offer really what we see as our great scheme for anybody really struggling and just hasn't got enough money to cover those essential household bills. where we can see you've got more money going out paying those bills than you've got income, we offer a reduced bill scheme up to 50% discount. You can apply via the policy and practice tool or by talking to our team. So yes, we can offer a discount of up to 50% for many of those customers.
Very good, very good. Thanks, Lisa. If I could come to you, because I have a question here. It was covering some of the points that Lisa talked about earlier, but perhaps if you could just reiterate that this person says, does the eligibility checker signpost which particular affordability support they're eligible for from all of everything shown?
Yeah, that is correct. So it depends on sort of which companies we've collaborated with, but yeah, we can identify all the additional support that's out there. And if there's anything specific by private organisations that people want to reiterate, we can definitely model it in and work with them to achieve that. But yeah, we're looking at everything, not just statutory benefits, not just the ones that are well known, because we've got to look further during the cost of living crisis.
Great, thanks, Ed. Tylor-Maria, I have a question here. Somebody's saying, what are the main reasons for the potential price hikes in your policy analysis?
Yes, so the additional amount of money that households could be expected to pay will be put towards, I think, a £96 billion investment into water infrastructure. And all of this is part of environmental measures to reduce leakages and reduce pollution. So this is going towards just an upgrade and to make sure that water infrastructure is as sustainable as it can be. Yeah. I can hand it over to Lisa if she wanted to provide any more comments on this, but I think in some ways this is a positive step in the right direction, especially when we're thinking about sustainability.
Right.
Sorry, they were just testing our fire alarm then. Sorry. Yeah, it was just a little point for us when we've been building our plans for the 5-year period. We are really listening to our customers who are saying to us that, you know, that really important that we look at the things that are challenging us around infrastructure, sustained supply. We know that we struggle with in some of our southern areas, we haven't got enough water supply. So we're looking at that, and also sewage overflows. We want to make sure there's been a lot of in the public around that situation that's really not popular. So we are trying to make sure that everything's covered and was part of that investment.
Great, lovely. Thanks, Lisa. Lisa, well, if I could stick with you, if I may. This person is asking, and I'm afraid I've lost the context a little bit, but this person saying, does the 5% threshold relate to net or gross household income?
It's net of your housing cost, so like your rent on your mortgage.
Great, lovely, thank you. Great, okay, Tylor-Maria, if I may, this might be a question for you, and then Lisa, if you want to come in on this one as well. How well are water companies targeting support to disabled people and their households? What can they do to improve?
Yes, so I had mentioned in the how companies compare slide, but each company offers the water shore tariff. And this is specifically for households that are on specific benefits and have a medical condition that requires them to use a lot of water, as well as have children. But as it stands, there's ongoing discussion about whether the scope of this is a bit too narrow and potentially misses out on households that do have specific disabilities and may use a lot of water, but don't necessarily fit the criteria that WaterShare currently has. So in some ways, there's definitely an opportunity for this to be revisited so that households with disabilities can actually get additional support to meet higher water usage.
Okay. Anything to add on that one, Lisa, perhaps in terms of other vulnerable households as well? Oh, Lisa, I think you've suddenly gone on mute, sorry.
Yeah, my fault, sorry. Yes, yeah, I would agree with what Tylor-Maria said there around that there is a bit of a gap. We know with the current WaterShore process gives a safety net for lots of our customers who are disabled, but it doesn't fit every criteria. There's a link in there to being on a means tested benefit. We know there'll be lots of customers on a low income that wouldn't meet those criteria. So at individual water company level, I know there's a few of us all looking at how we can be innovative with our tariffs moving forward when we're looking at in that next price review period to try and fill that gap. So I think that's the first thing around the tariffs. I suppose the other point I think is around probably awareness. There's sometimes an even bigger barrier for customers in those scenarios to apply, and for us that's really about us building those partnerships to be able to support customers to raise the awareness and those supported applications.
Yeah, great stuff, lovely, thank you. And I suppose sticking on a similar vein, if I may, and I'm happy for whoever to take the lead on this question. Water and energy companies working together on PSR, is there a better scope to work together on affordability support? Does policy and practice see any activity in this area? I don't know, Tylor-Maria, if you wanted to take a lead on that, or indeed Ed as well.
I can take a stab. So it's a question asking water and energy coming together to work at solutions to support low-income households.
Yeah, the point about the affordability support. So I think it's about organisations working together. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea, and I think there would be some traction for. I think energy companies and water companies are taking it very seriously that households are starting to feel a pinch of rising costs. So I think there's traction on both ends. I do think that the industries are slightly different, and in some ways what might be a challenge in the water industry might not necessarily look the same in the energy industry, in terms of, for instance, even who your provider is. The providers, and there's just a bit, they're just different. So in some ways I think there could be interesting learnings that either could learn from each other, but in some ways there might be a bit of a challenge in some ways to administer the support in the same way. But that isn't to say that useful policy tools like a Better Off calculator or an entitlement checker couldn't help to consolidate all of that support in one hub. And it isn't to say that frontline advisors couldn't be signposting that and signposting the types of help that a household could receive in a one-stop shop, and making every contact a helpful contact, no matter where the household is coming from. And lastly, I think the council is a really important convener to this as well, in ways that, let's say, the water and energy sector might not necessarily be able to do this together. I think the council has a really powerful way of, for instance, convening all kinds of support and advertising that out to households that are in their area. So I think there's lots of solutions that can come in, and I think, for instance, data and getting the right people in the right room could be one of them.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tylor-Maria. And I think it's true, Ed, you did touch on this yourself, actually, that from a technical point of view, bringing data, porting data together, it can happen. We're already doing that.
Definitely. With both EDF and also NWR now using our calculator in the same system, and us modelling their support into the calculator. Someone from the EDF's team can see, well, it looks like my customer is eligible for my support, but what else can I do? Looks like their postcode's in the NWR region. How about I submit my application for water social tariff all in the same vein with one question porting? And that is such a powerful tool to be able to connect those water organisations with the energy sector in one quick step of a click, really. And that's it.
Yeah, so it is possible. Lisa, what would you say on that? I mean, so for example, how closely would Northumbrian Water work with energy providers in your region?
I think it sounds quite exciting, to be honest. At the moment, I think I think was mentioned there as part of the question, from a PSR perspective, we've really opened the doors around trying to share data for customers' benefit and how we can make that one-stop shop really work. And we've had some amazing successes from that, from the stuff that we've seen on our priority services register. And I think if we can expand this way so that it's also done that assessment, we'd be really happy to do that. So yeah, keen to explore with Ed those opportunities.
Brilliant, great, lovely, thank you. Great question. So I think I have my last question, and I'm mindful of the time, actually. And again, I'll allow whoever wants to put their hand up for this question. Will the eligibility criteria for social tariffs change when the bills increase. I would assume that those who don't usually fall in the low income bracket will suddenly need support. Lisa, if you wanted to take that one first.
Yeah. Definitely happy to pick that one up. Yes, when we've built the plan for the next 5-year period, which has been mentioned as in for review, we have built in for the fact that we know those bills are going to go up, and because of that, what we need to do to make sure we've got our ambitious aim of eradicating water poverty for us. So that's still going to be looking at what level of support can we offer, how do we make sure we've got more money available to be able to do that, and that will mean that we'll change those criteria, increase their income levels to as the bills arise to account for that as well, alongside, as we've talked about, looking at some new innovative tariffs as well. So yes, those values will change. Ours at the moment, the income cap changes every year anyway, and it will just continue to grow to make sure we support the right customers.
Great, lovely, thank you very much. And I've had some lovely feedback from people that have said how interesting and insightful, in particular your session, Lisa. So thank you, people, for your feedback. Let me quickly just move on then to the next step slides. I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we've got a survey that's going to come at the end of this when I close the webinar down. So if you could take just a minute or so to complete that, we'd really appreciate your feedback. And also you can ask there for any more information on anything that we've talked about today, and also give any more questions as well. We've got our next 3 webinars coming up. We're very good on our planning. So in November, we are guest speaking with Haringey Council, and we're going to be talking about using data and the successes that they've had with their data-led employment campaigns. And also then in December, we will be hosting our own internal speakers, looking at 12 months of policy. What has changed? What have we found out? Insightful work this year from our year in review. And then looking forward to January, we're going to be talking about how the debt sector is connecting people to support. So in the survey, you'll get the chance to register in ahead for any of those webinars. Brilliant. So thank you is the last and final step, but perhaps the most important, very heartfelt thank you to my colleagues Tylor-Maria Johnson and Ed McNamara. Thank you very much for your time today. But in particular, Lisa, thank you for being our guest speaker and for taking us through the amazing work that you're doing at Northumbrian Water. It's great to hear, and yeah, thank you very much for your time today. Brilliant. Lovely. Thanks, everybody. That's the end of the webinar. I do hope to see you on our next webinar soon, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.